You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with a columnist at the Daily Mirror, Susie Boniface, and assistant comment editor at the Daily Telegraph, Madeline Grant. They'll both be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Sunak allies call for purge of Tory right as truce ends. The Eye looks at the mounting pressures on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to sack Home Secretary Suella Braverman. The Times has the headline, Sunak will deny King his trip to COP talks as leader faces backlash over his decision not to attend the event himself. Sharma's call to tax excessive oil profits. The Guardian looks at COP26 President Alok Sharma's call to change the windfall tax on oil and gas profits. You're not the Tory Messiah. The Daily Star leads with patients' calls to the new Prime Minister to give nurses a pay rise. Pay up PM. The Mirror also leads on the same topic. The Telegraph leads with rising fears of university bias against fee-paying schools. Musk closes deal for Twitter as big tech valuations lose billions. That's the headline on the front of the Financial Times. And the Express looks at the prospect of an ambitious deal with the French to end the migrant crisis. Navy probes submarine sex pest scandal. The Daily Mail focuses on claims of bullying and sexual harassment by women in the submarine service. My baby's brave fight inspired me to win mine. The Sun looks at how Tyson Fury nearly losing his daughter spurred him on in the ring. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by columnist at the Daily Mirror, Susie Boniface, and assistant comment editor at the Daily Telegraph, Madeline Grant. Welcome to both of you. Let's start with the front of the Eye. They're actually looking at Rishi Sunak and ministers urging action over mental health care. Susie.
Yeah, so this is just one of the first, obviously, we all knew when Rishi took over that he was going to be immediately dealing with some very sticky situations. And one of the first ones is going to be that he's facing calls to sack Suella Braverman, who was only just appointed to the role of Home Secretary. He's being warned that there's serious cracks in party unity and that there needs to be a deal to sort that out within the party. And that because of the deep cuts he and Jeremy Hunt are having to plan and impose, there's going to be huge problems with mental health, national debt. British national debt will be seen as some kind of junk bond. And the only way forward is going to be a new era of austerity, which is going to put NHS spending really a long way down the priority list and is going to cause a huge number of problems. So basically, the new Prime Minister has a lot of the last Prime Minister's problems to deal with. He's got a huge hole in the finances. He's got huge problems with the NHS. He's got huge problems within his party. Can he fix it? Probably not.
I thought you might say yes, he can there. Madeline, the issue with Suella Braverman, I mean, he's not going to get rid of her, is he?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it remains to be seen. I mean, from what we've heard so far, it seems like, there are serious question marks about her conduct. So it may well be that he has to. But I think the headline of the article is interesting because it kind of implies that it might be the truce is over and that there may be a kind of broader purge of the Tory right within the party, which would be kind of, quite a fascinating thing. I think that right now Rishi Sunak has inherited, as Susie said, the in tray from hell, but actually a fair amount of goodwill in the Conservative Party, because I think there's a recognition that, he got some of the big calls right over the summer, that he's shown foresight, and also that this is last chance saloon stuff. They have to get behind Sunak or not, or they're doomed, basically. But one of the problems that Liz Truss got herself into was failing to appoint ministers from a broad swathe of the party. And given some of the dicey calls that Sunak will have to make, some potentially very unpopular things will have to go through the House of Commons. Any alienation of large swathes of the party would, I think, be a terrible misjudgment. So, I think this is just one of many hot button issues that it will be fascinating to see what happens next.
And Susie, as the Times report, what about the Prime Minister deciding not to attend COP27 after the huge event that was COP26 and our commitment to it?
Exactly. And this is another problem which actually is going to cause him a lot of issues, both with voters and popularity polls, and also within his own party. So COP26 was a big thing for the Tories. It was a big thing for Boris Johnson, and it was a big thing for a lot of members of the party. And now Rishi Sunak is sort of repeating Liz Truss's instruction to King Charles that he should absolutely not attend, despite the fact that apparently Charles III is chomping at the bit, quote unquote, it says there, to get to, I think it's in Egypt, isn't it? And
yes.
To discuss and to help convene talks and get governments to make commitments about climate change and so on, which is an issue for voters in this country, is a big thing for Conservative voters, for Labour voters, for everybody. The polls are showing it is something that is of growing interest. But the Prime Minister says, look, I've got too much other stuff to do. I can't cope with melting ice caps as well. And Charles on the loose somewhere. So he wants him constrained and at home, where he's not trying to sort of, tie Rishi Sunak into some commitments that are going to be expensive or the things he won't be able to make. But this doesn't mean that the problem's gone away. You've still got huge issues with green energy, with actually finding the money to invest in the tech. Labour has just had at their conference, they've sold a big policy, which is the Great British Energy Company that would invest in green technology and create new jobs. The Conservatives don't have a reply to that at the moment. This would have been the perfect opportunity for Rishi Sunak to go there and say, right, well, here's something that I can do right now. I'm already in government. I don't need to make this a policy. I can just start doing it. But he chose not to. And he says he's staying at home to concentrate on things. And of course, no one's ever heard of prime ministers working on the plane. That just never happens.
Madeline, just on the King, the Environment Secretary is saying that it's up to Charles whether or not he attends the conference. But in terms of the decision of the Prime Minister, Madeline, do you think it's a mistake, or is it a sufficient excuse to say that the woes with the economy are just too many to leave the country to attend COP27?
Well, I think that if the King wanted to go, then that's his decision. Personally, I think that I think that that's an issue that Charles is very much committed to and has been leading the way. I think I disagree with Susie in that I think actually it is quite legitimate for the Prime Minister not to attend COP. I mean, Britain is very much leading the world in so many of these areas. I don't think that we need to prove our worth in this regard. I think actually we've made much greater commitments than many comparable Western nations. And actually, I think people would understand, given the level of the cost of living crisis and a number of fighting fires on many different fronts, why on this occasion, especially since this COP is not quite as consequential as the one in Glasgow last year, why giving it a miss on this occasion would be acceptable. And it's not the first time that a Prime Minister hasn't attended and instead has sent ministers and other deputies along. I don't think it's that controversial myself.
Susie, to the Mirror and the Prime Minister, very, very quickly, tell us about his interaction with a member of the public. Perhaps didn't go quite as he thought it might.
Nope. So Rishi Sunak did one of these things with the prime ministers. They tuck their tie into their shirt buttons and they wander around a very clean hospital ward where everyone's been asked if they'd like to talk to the prime minister, and they say yes, please. And he came up to a lady called Catherine Poole, who's 77, this hospital in South London that he was visiting, and he asked her, the kind of anodyne question you just ask someone in a hospital when you really don't care about the others. Are they looking after you all right, dearie? Is everything okay? And she gave him an absolute talking to about how the nurses weren't paid enough. And he said, well, I am trying. And she said, well, you need to try better. It's not good enough. They're doing a fantastic job and you need to pull your finger out. And the trouble is that regardless of the fact that, Rishi Sunak can say, well, I'd like to pay them more, but I can't do this. Under Rishi as Chancellor, all the recent budget increases for the NHS pay rises have had to come out of the NHS's existing budget. He didn't pay them any extra. So every time that the Tory government under Rishi pronounced that there was going to be a pay rise for doctors and nurses, that was money that came out of existing hospital budgets.
But he did say to Catherine Paul that he would take into consideration what she had said. So he listened.
Doesn't mean he's going to do it, though, does it?
Susie and Madeline, thanks very much for the moment. Going to take a break. Coming up, much more, including this story on the front of the Financial Times. Their headline, Musk closes deal for Twitter as big tech valuations lose billions. Do stay with us for much more.
Blockbusters are back on Sky Cinema.
Let's do this.
Here we go.
You should go. So when do we start?
Jungles eat people like us. Let's go.
Let's light this candle. That's right. Blockbusters are back.
Let's have some fun.
Enjoy the latest blockbusters only on Sky Cinema.
Sky Sports presents 3 thrilling live games.
Gordon with a big chance and a fine finish.
Kicking off with Fulham v Everton.
This is the Premier League.
While Liverpool host Leeds.
That is unbelievable. Sinistera, yes!
And on Sunday, West Ham travel to Old Trafford.
That is what he is all about.
Don't miss the action.
It's only live once.
The Premier League continues. To add Sky Sports, go to sky.com/sports.
Have a spooky Halloween. Get 2 of these tubs of sweets for £6 and these Cadbury's treats for just £1.25. More ways to save with Morrison's.
Revolut your way into currency exchange. Download Revolut now.
This ain't competition, this is stand-up. This is for them boss women told you this is an anthem. I don't do 4 rounds, I just do knockouts. Word to be a champion, I ain't taking hand. I'm that girl, I'm that boss.
Enjoy every meal with HelloFresh. Home cooking made easy and affordable. Order now at hellofresh.co.uk.
I sentence you to 6 days of blocked nose.
Your Honour, I have Vicks Sinex and plea for the verdict to be shortened by 2 days.
Vicks Sinex. No other nasal spray is proven to unblock the nose faster while helping you recover up to 2 days earlier. Vicks Sinex.
Forget doing the daily clean on your hands and knees. The Flash Speed Mop's 2 times thicker and wetter cloth zaps all those sticky bits and curvy bits so you can stand up to daily dirt. And to defeat daily dust and pet hair, pop on the new Speed Mop Dry Pad and lock dust and hair in a single swipe without having to shift your sofa. Daily dust and hair is done for with new Flash Speed Mop Dry Pads.
Oh. These people overpaid for their international money transfers. Switch to OFX and get 24/7 access to a currency specialist. You'll get bank-beating rates and round-the-clock phone access to our OF experts, helping you make transfers at the right time and right rate, which could save you thousands. Or you can simply use OFX online. It could be the difference between a profit or a loss.
OFX.
Real people here to help.
Live happy. Atoll protected.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview. Still with me, columnist at the Daily Mirror, Susie Boniface, and assistant comment editor at the Daily Telegraph, Madeline Grant. Welcome back to both of you. Let's have a look at this Twitter story and Elon Musk's acquisition, his £44 billion takeover. It wasn't a straightforward acquisition, but he has got the goods nonetheless at the end of it all, Madeline.
Yes, he does. But it seems to be causing a certain amount of financial turmoil in the world of big tech. It seems, I wasn't really aware of this until I read this piece, but it seems like it's come around at the worst possible time for Silicon Valley generally, as it coincides with the ongoing economic problems, but also a massive slowdown in the digital advertising that pays for social media. And I think as banks have scrabbled around to lend the money to Twitter, it's made lending to other platforms more difficult, just at the time when their valuations are also taking a hammering. So Facebook has tanked recently because Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse has not been a success, to put it mildly, despite the billions sunk into it. So it seems like just as Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter is causing a fair amount of excitement and turmoil online, a similar thing is happening financially, and it's exposing the fact that many big tech firms haven't been particularly good at reining in their costs.
And the speculation, Susie, is as to whether he will allow erstwhile President of the United States, Donald Trump, back on Twitter.
Yeah. Now, Madeline's right to say that, this is Elon's bought at the top of the market. It's a bit bonkers. And most of it seems to have been bought with debt, which is also quite bonkers. But, there used to be a question that every doctor would ask. If you hit your head or you had some kind of psychotic break, a doctor would ask you if you knew who the Prime Minister was. Now, recent events have made that a bit of a waste of time. So I think it would be a very good idea to replace that question, perhaps, with the suggestion that, as it says here in the FT, Donald Trump says that Twitter's now in a sane pair of hands. Now, if a doctor said to somebody, does Donald Trump think you're sane, then that would be an excellent way of qualifying someone, I think, to be immediately sectioned or given some kind of diagnosis.
Susie, we must leave it there. Thank you very much for your analysis, and Madeline also. We'll see you in the next hour, and they will be back.